Right then, so hello all and welcome back to another tutorial of a Technomancer build. So I'll give it a little showcase first. Now I am still missing boots on this class. I've got normal purple, but I would like apocalypse level boots, but we'll see how we go. It still kicks ass, it still does a lot of damage, and you practically cannot die on this character. So lo and behold, let's go into it. Let's take on the boss, see what sort of numbers we're kicking out. Again, they're not massively high, you could probably get it higher, but this one is specifically designed for solo play, and you practically cannot die, and you still deal a decent amount of damage. So what you want to be doing is throwing out your cold turret straight away. Dodge that, throw out a lighted turret, throw your cold snap, and start blasting him to get that mage's rage proccing. And you just pretty much want to keep doing this, dodging his attacks, throwing some more out, take some moves. Make sure you want that lighted turret out thrown as much as you can. I'll go into my pack tree soon. In the pack tree there's a class called, a mod called Lethal Devices. And currently that is probably broken because it's doing just absurd amounts of damage, more damage than what it probably should, because it out damages my cold turrets, it out damages everything that I use. It's just crazy, so we'll get into it. Like I said, as you can see, I'm just not taking damage the moment I do. My health just skyrockets back up. It's silly. Another cold snap, and there we go. Nice and easy. Right, let's see what we get. Doesn't really matter. Got them all anyway. Alrighty, let's pick all that up. So, let's get into the actual build itself. So, to begin with, weapon-wise, I only really use one gun on this, and that's the Imploder. I run Deadly Disturbance, Mage's Rage, Strings of Gauss. Mage's Rage recently had an update, as I stated in my Pyromancer video build, that it wasn't nerfed, it was fixed. It now does exactly what it should do. There is a couple of mods that you could probably switch out for it, Death Renome being one of them, but for now Mage's Rage still works for me. It's good enough. Like I said, Death Renome is probably the next best one to swap it out for. My sidearms, Torment and Agony, I've just got that on for a bit of fun. Every single mod on there does a reload damage, so that's quite fun to play with, and the other gun doesn't really make much of a difference. Getting into my set bonus, the Borealis Monarch increases damage on frozen enemies by 50%. Considering I'm throwing out a cryo turret every 2 seconds, everything is frozen, as well as cold snap freezing enemies, so you've pretty much always got a 50% uptime on your damage towards enemies. Also, crit hit damage increased by 10%, which is quite nice, straight after cold snap. The headpiece that I have is obviously Borealis. It comes naturally with twins. You want to then put double trouble on, which enables you to throw down an enhanced turret which has 2 barrels instead of the 1. Again, doubling the output, fantastic to have. Twins, you want to keep that on there so you can throw 2 turrets at a time. Anomaly Echo, I have this because I have an anomaly build as opposed to a firepower build, but we'll get into that when I go into my class tree. Moving down, we've got the Rover, the Borealis Monarch, Icicle Storm, Unstoppable Force, and Hail Shot. All 3 of those are quite nice to have. Hail Shot is pretty good. You want as much status power as possible, and as you can see, a lot of the Borealis stuff comes with status power on it, so the more of that the better. This one here, status power. Now, Icicle Storm, killing enemies frozen by the skill makes them explode. That you probably could swap out for something else. However, I very much like it. The moment you throw a cold snap down, when you've got a group of enemies around you, especially the littler ones, you cold snap, they turn twice, you shoot them once, they explode, and kill everything else around them. Very nice mod to have. Unstoppable Force does exactly what it says on the box, increase your anomaly power by 50% of your resistance pierce. If you haven't got much resistance pierce, you can get it up selecting separate class nodes, but I don't have a massive amount, but it works. You could probably swap Unstoppable Force out for something else. That's entirely up to you. For me it works, so I keep it on. Next we've got the Waistcloth, improved coolant. Now this one doubles the fire rate of the deployed turret. This one for me was one of the major game changing mods for my cryo turrets. This one is a necessity. You have to have improved coolant on because it deals so much more damage it's definitely worth having. Freezing boost, again, straight up 8% damage against frozen enemies. Every enemy is frozen. Virulent compound, 10% more damage to elites affected by toxic and blight. Now, virulent compound I have on because obviously I throw out toxic turret, and toxic gets put on pretty much everything as well. So again, very nice mod to have, all increasing damage. Hands, now the hands are entirely up to you. I personally like Plague Sowers. It gives you the status power. It does give you max health, but it doesn't give you any cooldown or anomaly power, which is a shame. But it comes naturally with Euthanizer on, which gives you a flat out 16% more. You can then put Shatter on for another 16% more. And if you're lucky and you can get Arms and Anomaly on there as your third roll, that's even better. Going down to the boots, now this is what lets me down at the moment. I am still trying to find some. However, these are doing the trick for the time being. As you saw in that boss fight, I was able to melt him pretty quick anyway. Ideally you want Long Winter on there, which increases the radius of your cold snap by 50%. It basically allows you to hit more enemies with cold snap, allowing you to do more damage to them. Cryo down. Now I have this skill on specifically so I can throw my cryo turrets out pretty much as often as I can. My blighted turret. The reason for that is the more times you throw them out, the more lethal devices procs, and it just starts doing much more damage. The third mod on that, ideally I'd like Toxic Piercer. Increases the toxic like the effectiveness of toxic by 25%, and that's equal to 100% your resistance pierce. So again, the higher your resistance pierce, the better that mod will be. But even so, a straight up 25% more effectiveness of toxic is still nice to have. Moving on to the skills, obviously we've got blighted turret, cold snap, cryo turret. Going over into the class now. This one, as you can see, I've gone down the bottom. We want anomaly fueled. Obviously increasing your anomaly power. This is an anomaly build. You can see, where is it? Anomaly power is at 1.2 million. Firepower is slightly higher, but as soon as I start getting the Mage's Rage in there and things like that, it starts going sky high. So definitely worth having. We have increased resistance pierce. Obviously we want that. Increased my resistance, which makes me tougher. You can go for first shot, but personally I prefer the resistance. Makes you a little bit tougher, a bit harder to kill. Adrenalizing antenna. Activating the decay skill increases your anomaly power. Obviously blighted turret is a decay skill, so I instantly get 30% more anomaly power every time I throw a blighted turret out, and I throw them out every 5 seconds. Moving on up, we don't bother going down this way, we go up this way. The reason for that, and this is, where is it now? Not overclocked. Where is it? We'll find it. There's a skill that allows you to jump straight back up, which is nice. So we come up into here. Enemies afflicted with freeze receive 10% more damage. Obviously we want that. Everything's frozen. More hit points, which is always nice. Reduced gadget cooldown. That reduces the time of your cold snap by 15%, as well as one of your turrets, which is nice. Max health, like I said. Exposing frost. Every time freeze is afflicted on an enemy, vulnerable is inflicted as well. Now, vulnerable's nice because it obviously makes them vulnerable, but freeze again is applied on absolutely every enemy we come across. So the more effects that we get from applying freeze to things, the better it will be for us. And when marked for execution, when vulnerable is afflicted on an enemy, it's 40% more effective. Armor plates, as opposed to freeze afflicted on an enemy, lasts 20% longer. The length of time it affects them for is kind of irrelevant, simply because they're constantly frozen. When they're unfroze, they get froze again. The cryo turrets constantly apply that freeze to them. The cold snap constantly applies that freeze, so on and so forth. Weapon life leech, that's always good to have, keeps you survivable. Increase armor, again survivability mods. Doctrine and medicine, increase all healing by 20%. This practically makes you invincible. Unless you don't have turrets out and you just stand there, you pretty much can't die. Skill life leech again. Fracture. Enemies afflicted with freeze receive 30% more damage. Again, everything is constantly afflicted with freeze. This just gives a flat out 30% raw damage increase to it. Very nice one to have on. And overclocked. Now, the overclocked is what I was referencing a moment ago. Upon losing all health, you'll receive a second chance to return to the battlefield with 50% of your max health. So even if you do die, you still get another chance. So you go down, you pop back up, you throw your turrets out again, boom, they've got to try and kill you all over again in case you wasn't paying attention and you did manage to die. Activating gadget skills increases your anomaly and weapon damage by 40% as well, which is fantastic because you do more damage with bullets and more damage with everything else. Ascension points, mine's maxed on this character. It's entirely up to you where you want to put them. I'd say for this build specifically, you want your anomaly tree first. Things like anomaly damage, resistance pierce, anomaly power. You also want armor piercing because you're using your turrets quite a lot. Cooldown's always nice to have. And then obviously your endurance and whatnot, they're all survivability mods. Going on to the packs tree. Now, a lot of people, you can, if you would like to, run Initial Striker, down onto Lethal Devices, then go down onto the Undying, and then followed in with Override, because this gives you more anomaly power, 100% of your skill leech. Now, I don't have this one on simply because my value for skill life leech is too low. It's only 26%, and I don't get that. That doesn't do as much damage for me as this one up here does, which we'll get to now. Lethal Devices, that's pretty much a must. As I said during the boss fight, Lethal Devices is, for some reason, it feels broken. Practically everything you do just procs that skill and it just annihilates everything. It's a fantastic skill to have, so I highly recommend that. Painkiller, and then you want to go up into the top. Permanence, inflicting toxic on an enemy has a 100% chance to inflict a random additional status. Now with your blighted turret out, that inflicts toxic on every enemy, which also then inflicts a random status. You then go over to Dissection and you deal 5% more damage to enemies for every status on them. Now, like I said time and time again, you're constantly applying freeze, you're constantly applying toxic. When you apply toxic, another status is put on, so you're pretty much getting a flat 15% damage to everything, no matter what. So that's very nice. Let's quickly have a look at the end damage that I did there, just so we can have a quick check of the Lethal Devices and see what that's kicking out at. Alrighty, let's see what it's popped up at. 1.9 billion, and that was just on the last boss. It wasn't a full run. I got to the last boss, killed him once, backed out, went back in just to make this tutorial for you guys. So damaged out 1.9 billion, damage blocked 27 million, healing from life leech, your turrets, they just don't let you die. Damaged out, class node, Lethal Devices, almost double what my turret did. And that is essentially free damage. It's just for having that Pax point on there. You just throw your turrets out, Lethal Devices procs, and it just rinses enemies. Absolutely rinses them. Cryo turret does well. The blighted turret, that doesn't do much damage, but it's there to put the status on things. The more toxic on them, the more vulnerable they have, so on and so forth. Obviously the skills that I've got on in my class tree reflect that. Deadly Disturbance. Strings of Gauss is a fantastic mod. Deadly Disturbance is good for group enemies, not so good against single target, hence why it's not as high as Strings of Gauss. Strings of Gauss is incredible at the moment. Fantastic mod. Toxic Double Gun. Skills used. Cryo Turret, Cold Snap, Blighted Turret. Handful of each, not massive amounts, and it just annihilated the boss. So, yeah. Right, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I will leave a link down in the description to my Pyromancer build if any of you guys are wondering about Pyromancers. I have an Eruption build on it at the moment. It seems to do quite a lot of damage, which is very nice. I will be making a Volcanic Rounds build for it soon, so keep your eyes open for that. And like I said, please like, subscribe and share. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.